Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about big data. And look, this is a technology that's, well, it's changing everything. I mean, from how you shop all the way to how we're finding the literal building blocks of the universe. The story of how this all works, it's pretty incredible.
So let's just jump right in with a question. And this sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, but I promise you, this really happened. How can a store, a regular retail store, know you're pregnant before your own family does?
Well, the answer is big data. Yeah, and that story, which actually happened at Target, it just perfectly sums up the power we're going to get into today. It's this wild ability to find these super important patterns in data that honestly were just completely invisible to us before.
Okay, so to really get this, you have to understand that we are living right in the middle of a massive data revolution. And I'm not just talking about having more information. No. This is a complete fundamental shift in how we even think about information.
Think about it like this. For decades, the old way of thinking was all about scarcity, right? Computer storage was super expensive. So what did we do? We only kept the data we absolutely needed right now. Everything else, just toss it. Gone. But today, it's the total opposite. Storage is so ridiculously cheap that the new rule is keep everything. We're creating these huge data lakes, just massive pools of information, saving it all just in case we have a question we want to ask it down the road.
And what does this new mindset unlock? I mean, the scale of it is just staggering. We are talking about some truly monumental achievements here. These big data tools, they helped physicists hunt down and find the Higgs boson particle. They're what allowed an AI to master Go, one of the most complex games in the world. They're literally helping scientists speed up cancer research by decades. And, on a daily basis, this is the stuff that powers the search engines and online stores that we all use every single day.
Okay, so that's the why. We get it. But what actually makes data big, right? It's not just some empty buzzword. There's actually a really simple framework the industry uses to define it, and it's called the 3 V's.
All right, first, volume. This is the one everybody thinks of first, and it's pretty simple, really. It's just about the sheer, mind-boggling amount of data being generated and stored. The scale we're talking about here is, well, it's almost hard to wrap your head around.
And just to give you a little perspective on that volume, think about YouTube. Just from the videos that people like you and me upload, the platform adds something like 100 petabytes of new data every single year. Now, what's a petabyte? It's 1,000,000 gigabytes. It's a colossal amount of information, and it forces you to think about storage in a completely new way.
Okay, V number 2 is velocity. And this one is all about speed. We're talking about the incredible rate that data is flooding in and needs to be processed, like right now. Think about trying to spot credit card fraud as it's happening, or making a high-speed stock trade. That decision has to be made in a split second.
If you want to see velocity on an absolutely extreme level, check this out. There's this new telescope project, the Square Kilometre Array. It's going to collect data so fast it could fill up 500 average laptops in the blink of an eye. Imagine trying to process that. It's like drinking from a data fire hose, just a massive challenge.
And that brings us to our final V, variety. For the longest time when we said data analysis, we were really just talking about neat little rows and columns in a spreadsheet. But big data just completely shatters that idea. Now it's all about our ability to analyze all kinds of diverse, messy, unstructured data.
And just think about what that means. We're talking about pulling meaning out of everything from social media posts and emails, to analyzing audio and video files, to understanding sensor data from a jet engine. We can even track every single click a customer makes on a website or decode the massive, complex code of our own DNA. That's variety.
So, okay, we've got this insane volume, this crazy velocity, and this huge variety of data. The big question is, how on earth do we actually handle all of it? Well, you can't use the old tools. The answer requires a whole new kind of engine, a completely new ecosystem of technology.
But before we dig into the tech itself, there's this really important idea you need to get. It's a core principle that drives almost all of modern analytics. And it's this: more data beats better models. The idea is that for a lot of problems, especially with things like AI and machine learning, just having a gigantic amount of data is way more powerful than trying to come up with some super clever, complicated algorithm.
And you can see this so clearly. When you take a machine learning model and you start feeding it data, you move from a small amount to a medium amount to a truly big amount of data, and its accuracy just shoots up. It's like the more examples it sees, the smarter it gets, because it can finally learn all those little patterns and details it would have totally missed otherwise.
So,
The key thing to remember is that this isn't just one magic piece of software. It's a whole ecosystem built on 4 main pillars. First, you've got distributed storage using tools like Hadoop. This just means you can spread your data out across thousands of cheap, regular computers. Second, distributed computation with things like Spark. You use that same network of computers to process all that data at the same time, which is way faster. Third, and this is huge, is open source collaboration. People share their code freely, so innovation just happens way faster for everybody. And finally, you've got cloud accessibility from platforms like AWS or Azure. This means anyone can just rent this incredible computing power, making big data possible without having to go out and build your own supercomputer.
Okay, so we've talked about the what and the how, but let's bring it all back down to earth. Why does any of this tech actually matter to you and me? Well, because it's what makes a truly data-driven approach possible, and that is completely changing, well, pretty much every industry out there.
Let's look at some real-world examples, because this stuff is powerful. We already talked about Target, right? They use this to drive just incredible growth. Over in the UK, the supermarket Tesco used its loyalty card data to basically take over the market. And today, come on, almost every single online store you visit is analyzing your journey. Every clip, every search, all to try and make that shopping experience better for you.
All right, so let's boil this all down. What are the key things to take away from all this? First, big data is really a mindset shift, right? We went from rationing data to keeping everything. Second, remember the 3 V's that define it: volume, velocity, and variety. Third, it's not one thing, it's an ecosystem, powered by distributed, open source, and cloud tech. And finally, the whole thing runs on one core idea. More data helps us make better, smarter predictions and decisions. Simple as that.
And so that leaves us with one last thing to think about. We know for a fact that in fields like genetics, the amount of data we have is doubling about every 7 months. Just think about that. So with everything we've just talked about, all this power at our fingertips, it really makes you wonder, right? What are the questions we're going to answer next? The ones that, just a little while ago, we thought were completely impossible to even ask.